Hello, BookTube. Who's up for a little Friday Reads? Friday Reads is when all of BookTube centers together and they talk about their reading plans, not just for Friday and the weekend, but also in the immediate future, what's on their radar, what they're actually thinking about actively at the moment, not just the stuff that's been sitting on their shelves forever. I love Friday Reads videos, absolutely love them. And I've got a bunch of books I want to show you here, starting with a true coup. We have talked on this channel many times about Amazon. Amazon has made extensive inroads into the publishing world with many, many imprints, literary fiction, science fiction, thrillers, and also Amazon Crossing, which is their very ambitious imprint for translated literature. They're doing a real service to the world of letters by having this. And I can't help but think that some of these imprints are benefiting from new editorial hires. I confess, I don't scrutinize the fine print of the hiring section of Publishers Weekly to see who's got new jobs when, but I can almost pinpoint when this must have happened because the quality has been unignorable. I know people who have problems with Amazon as a publisher. I used to have them myself. And the standard easy response to those problems is simply to ignore what Amazon does. But now, a lot of what they do is not ignorable, and this is one of the biggest examples that I have seen of that so far. This is The First Stone by Karsten Jensen. A huge book, translated by Mark Musari, comes out in September, and some of you will know the author's name because he wrote We the Drowned, a great novel. He wrote a great novel called We the Drowned, which I have seen on the shelves of some booktubers, so I know that it's known on BookTube. And his second book, the next book by the author of We the Drowned, is by Amazon. It's this thing. So, and that actually makes it an active shame because I think Barnes & Noble, the biggest retail book-selling chain in America, for obvious reasons, will not stock Amazon books. I don't think they will. I don't think I've ever seen one in their stores. And that's a shame because the We the Drowned got fans. It had an underground readership. And this is that. This is a brutal, unflinching international bestseller about a platoon of soldiers descending into the insanity of the war in Afghanistan. And I can't wait. I just can't wait. I mean, it comes out in September, but I'm going to give it a preliminary read this weekend because this is an author who I've mentioned before that authors can either have credit in the bank or they can have a deficit. And this author has an enormous amount of credit in the bank. We the Drowned was a great book. So I think it's amazing that this author got a deal with Amazon. Certainly amazing for the author. The impression I get is that the various imprints of Amazon really give the author a better deal than a traditional publisher. The unfortunate downside is that you're linked to this extremely predatory and unethical company. As opposed to, as opposed to this author shopping around this manuscript with Viking or Liverite or something like that. Instead, you're in bed with Amazon. Nobody ever says you're in bed with W.W. Norton, but when you do business with Amazon, you're in bed with them, and that will hurt you in ways and help you as well. So I'm curious to know where I will see this book come September. Then the next one, of course, is very predictable for this channel. I will be gobbling this up this weekend. This is by Clive Wynne, and it is called Dog is Love. Why and how your dog loves you. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is a shot across the bow to some animal behaviorist, canine specialists who said that dogs don't love you, that they don't feel anything like that they know where their food comes from and they know where they'll be in danger if they don't submit, but that otherwise the emotion you lavish on them is not reciprocated. I tell you, as my own dog furiously destroys the cardboard on the floor. Let me see here. Every dog owner knows the feeling. A nuzzle of a dog's nose, the warmth of them lying at your feet, even their whining when they want to get up or go on the bed. It really seems like our dogs love us. But for years, scientists have resisted that conclusion, warning against anthropomorphizing our pets. Frida, are you all right? What are you doing? No, don't do that. What's the matter with you? You have cardboard to chew on. She went after my hat. The one time it was on the floor. Dogs. Anyway, enter Clive Wynne, a pioneering canine behaviorist whose research is helping us to usher in a new era, one in which love, not intelligence or submissiveness, is at the heart of the human-canine relationship. Drawing on cutting-edge studies from his lab and others around the world, that's I'm not 100% sure if that means his laboratory or his Labrador Retriever. But I don't know that it makes a big difference. Wynne shows that affection is the very essence of dogs, from their faces and tails to their brains, hormones, and even DNA. This scientific revolution is revealing more about dogs' unique origins, behavior, and needs than we ever imagined possible. A humane, illuminating book, Dog is Love, is essential reading for anyone who's ever loved a dog and experienced the wonder of being loved back. So, this comes out in late September. I'm assuming that all of BookTube that has dogs is going to buy this book, and well, you should. This is. Well, I haven't read it yet. It could stink. I'll report back, but I don't think it's going to stink. That synopsis is true. I often joke that the only person in the world who's actually qualified to write a book about dogs is me. And I haven't done it yet, so everyone else is unqualified. But at least, whether you're unqualified or not, the reason that this author is unqualified and all others are unqualified is because he can't talk to his dog. He doesn't actually know what his dog is thinking or feeling at any minute. And the reason why I'm willing to suspend that for this book is because that is absolutely true. Dogs have been genetically engineered by humans over millennia. Not just to be loyal companions, but to be loving companions. And it's their nature to do that. And it's also by far the best way to get along with them, to train them, anything like that. I'm greatly looking forward to this. I think I would be positively amazed if it disappointed me. Then this next one is a big one. This is also September. This is a Slight Harbinger. You'll notice my favorite genre is biography. I love biographies, and the bigger the better. And yet, in the beginning part of the year, you don't see them. It's September and October. It's when the year starts to gear up for colder weather, for the autumn, for that publishers start to roll out their larger-sized biographies. And so we've only seen a handful of them, and no idea what treasures are waiting in the September, October, and November. This is a harbinger of that. This is one of the first of that. This is by Benjamin Moser, and it is Sonntag. I pray, to whatever gods may be, that the publisher, this is Echo Books, has the bravery to make that the cover of the book. No title, no author. Leave that for elsewhere. Pictures don't get much more impressive than that. Authors don't get much more impressive than that. This is the book, Sonntag. This is a big biography of Susan Sontag. I pray that they leave this as the cover. They won't do it, of course, but nobody ever listens to me, not even you people. But still, this is exactly what it looks like. This is a huge new biography of Susan Sontag. So what have we got here? I'm just going to hold this up because I glory in it. This author, he turns to the most emblematic writer of the 20th century, the American 20th century, certainly. One whose name conjures an immediate image, one so well known that 15 years after her death, a day rarely goes by without her somehow, somewhere being mentioned. Absolutely true. She has her hook still in critical thinkers all across the spectrum. You certainly can't go an issue of any major book critical weekly. The TLS, the London Review, the New York Review of Books, you certainly can't go a week without her name cropping up there, but elsewhere as well. She's one of those authors where a lot of people who might not, I didn't always agree with her, I didn't always like what she wrote, but a lot of people in that position when she was alive don't really think of her as dead. It hasn't really sunk in. I have a feeling that's going to be the same way with Christopher Hitchens. It's going to be hard to let them go. It's hard to let some of these people go. But let's see here. Novelist, activist, essayist, playwright, filmmaker, one of the most influential critics of her generation. In 2019, Sonntag is still everywhere. But even though her name is so widely known, her work is not. There are few writers who are as well known as Sonntag who are as little read. I think that's true, and it's a terrible shame. And despite constant gossip, her private life has been a mystery. Moser reveals how very little we truly know about both life and work. And that's fantastic. This is, he is her authorized biographer. I don't know what that's going to mean in this case. He talks about his previous book, which was about Claire the Spectre. Okay, being Sonntag's authorized biographer is different from this book being an authorized biography. Oh, that's very good. That's very clever. That's very good. That could be true. With the estate's permission, Moser had the authorization to see the secret parts of Sonntag's archives at UCLA, which will be off limits to the general public for the next few decades. He also had the blessing of the estate, which meant that, quote, a lot of people talked to me who wouldn't have otherwise. But he otherwise had complete freedom to address even the most complicated chapters of this most complicated life. Okay, authorized biographers always say that. They always say that no control was exercised on them. I know a little bit about some of the darker corners of Susan Sontag's life, and I will read this book. I will know, by the time I get halfway through it, I'll know whether or not that claim is true. We shall see. Either way, I read the Claire Lispector book. I can't stand Claire Lispector. I can't stand it. She had a renaissance, a minor renaissance of reprinted editions and critical essays everywhere that Susan Sontag badly needs and hasn't had. Maybe this book will spark it, or maybe publishers will flush out some works ahead of time. Boy, oh boy. Okay. Fantastic. So this comes out in late September. I am on board. I mean, I'm on board for the season of big biographies anyway. But this one, extra fascinating because it's our life. It's our times. Then this next one is Reread. Something we saw on this channel. I was intrigued when I told you about the advanced copy, and then I sang the praises of the finished copy once I'd read it. A lot of you expressed interest, and now it's out in paperback, or it's coming out in paperback in May. Yeah, mid-May, a couple of weeks from now. And it is a rare and happy occasion in which I get to say that the paperback that's coming out for $16, $17 is considerably nicer looking than the hardcover. So in this case, it was worth the wait. It's got tons of blurbs, unfortunately none by me. I never actually got around to writing about this book, but boy, what did I praise it. And I praise it again. This gives me a perfect opportunity to praise it again because I'm going to read it again. This is by Stacey Horn, and it is Damnation Island. About Roosevelt Island, what is now Roosevelt Island, which was once home to a poorhouse, a prison, insane asylums. It was a horrible place to go. It was a place where hopeless people went and were kept. And Stacey Horn does a fantastic job of telling that story. It's a slim work of popular history, but it is broad-ranging and incredibly memorable. Just incredibly memorable. I can't wait to sink into it again. So I thought I would show it to you again, because this is what it's going to look like on the paperback tables of your bookstore. And at $16, it's worth your money. It's a really good work of popular history. So even if you don't read history, you're gonna keep reading this. You're gonna read the whole thing, and you're gonna remember it. It's really, really good. Then we'll do 3 in a row that are kind of sort of thematically similar. They are all relatively that broad heading of current events, and I've only read one of them. So we'll start with the one that I've read, and it's about the Arab Spring. It's this. We saw it on this channel. This is a finished copy of The Buried by Peter Hessler, in which he goes to Egypt right at the beginning of Arab Spring, and it tells the story of the country. He joins a couple of archaeological digs for unearthing Egypt's ancient past, but he also digs deep into the lives of the people that he meets, his translator, ordinary citizens, his trash collector, most memorably his trash collector, and does a fantastic job of wedding those two together. I admit when I first read about this and read the publicity sheet to you, I thought the gimmick of digging deep into the contemporary lives of people who lived through the Arab Spring and now its aftermath, and digging deep into the actual literal sands of Egypt for archaeological finds. At first, when I heard that, I thought, okay, that's a little labored. This guy is a longtime writer for The New Yorker, and that's just the sort of thing they sometimes overindulge in. But the book carries the day, just carries the day with conviction. Beautifully written, of course, but it also it works. That gimmick, that conceit works. So if you're interested in Egypt, as well you should be, it's an incredibly important country. If you're interested in the events of modern day Egypt or even ancient Egypt, and when the twain shall meet, you're going to see this in your bookstore. If you're flush with money, you should buy it. It's really well done. You will definitely read it, and also you're going to see it in your library. And it's well worth it. It's well worth reading. And then the other two they're thematically similar. You're going to see that they're similar. They're taken from, they deal with current events in a way. It's a kind of reductive way to say it. These two I have not read. First one is by Noura Erakat, Justice for Some, about Israel and Palestine. This is a civil rights lawyer who has advised at the UN and who has, let me tell you about it. just justice is the question of Palestine. In the question of Palestine, is often framed as a question of law. Yet none of the Israeli-Palestine conflict's most vexing challenges have been resolved by judicial intervention. Occupation law has failed to stem Israel's settlement enterprise. Laws of war have permitted killing and destruction during Israel's military offenses in the Gaza Strip. The Oslo Accords' two-state solution is now a dead letter. Justice for some offers a new approach to understanding the Palestinian struggle for freedom, told through the power and control of international law, focusing on key junctures from the Balfour Declaration of 1917 to the present-day wars in Gaza. Noura Erkarat shows how the strategic deployment of law has shaped current conditions. Over the past century, the law has done more to advance Israel's interests than Palestinians, but the author argues this outcome was never inevitable. And as you know, I read everything on this subject. It's always frustrating because the reading always reinforces how simple this whole problem is. I don't like to, as you know, some of you will know, I don't like to agree with Noam Chomsky on much. I myself consider him to be an unpatriotic American. It sounds very simple. I know to 21st century ears that's going to sound like I'm accusing him of being a monophysite, but nevertheless, it bothers me. He has benefited every minute of his life enormously from being an American citizen. I don't say that it's America above criticism, but anyway, he has often said, at his most simple, he's not a very simple thinker, he's a very complex thinker, but he has often said, and so have plenty of other people, that this is not fundamentally a complex problem. That opening paragraph saying that the law has failed to stop any of those things, what was it? Occupation law has failed to stem Israel's settlement enterprise. Laws of war have permitted killing and destruction in the Gaza Strip, and the Oslo Accords are a dead letter solution. Well, there's a reason for all three of those things and many others, and it's very simple. It's because the United States will not hold its ally Israel's feet to the fire. Israel is piece by piece, block by block, street by street, illegally occupying an independent country. And America is letting it happen. Whereas, if, for instance, another American ally were doing that, America would not allow it. America would say, you have to stop, you have to roll back what you've done, and if you don't, the first thing we'll do is cut off your foreign aid. If that was done to Israel, Israel would be dead, because American foreign aid, official and off the books, to Israel is enormous. It's a gigantic part of the country's operating budget. And in the case of another country, America wouldn't stop there. If that didn't work, if the illegal occupation of another country were still continuing, America would say, all right, we've cut off your aid, you're still doing this. If you don't stop doing this, we're going to send advisors. That is the euphemism for we're going to softly, militarily stop you from doing what you're doing. You can't keep doing this. We are telling you, as their ally and your friend, that if you keep doing this, we're going to physically stop you. America has never done that with Israel, nor ever even come close to doing that, and that is why all of those things are true. The Oslo Accords, the massive, rampant violence in the Gaza Strip, and also the ongoing settlements, which are the wormwood at the heart of this whole process. All of that is happening because America lets it. If America didn't want any of those things to happen, tomorrow they would stop. So books like this are a little frustrating. They all operate by kind of sort of ignoring the gigantic red, white, and blue elephant in the room. That can be a little annoying, but I never miss them. I never miss them, especially since, this author is unknown to me. But she has credentials a mile long, and she's been on the ground. She's been litigating these issues, so I often learn a lot, even if I end up being frustrated. And then there's this next one. We're coming up on a heartbreaking anniversary. I will read you about it because I confess, I didn't realize that the anniversary was coming up or that it was so long. This is by Lao Yiwu. This is Bullets and Opium. It's a real life stories of the Tiananmen Square massacre. And the pub sheet, I was amazed when I read this first line. June the 4th, 2019 is the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square. 30 years. It could have knocked me over with a feather. I had no idea where had that time gone. And this author went to jail for years for writing a poem. That is something. That takes courage. That takes a kind of strength that a lot of people who talk about soy boys or how wimpy poets are can't even conceive. The author wrote an incendiary poem about Tiananmen Square after the massacre and was imprisoned for 4 years. He documented the experience in his award-winning book For a Song and 100 Songs, which came out in 2013. And now he is compelled to track down his fellow survivors of the Tiananmen Square massacre. This book recounts the trauma and devastation endured by the young idealists who stood up to the Chinese government and the many innocent bystanders who dodged bullets on their way home from work. He finds lots of them and talks to them all. And here it is in an English language translation. This is translated by David Cowhig, Jesse Cowhig, and Ross Perlin. And it's coming out in, I think, mid-May, something like that. No, May 7th, early in May 7th. But I'm going to be reading all 3 of these books back to back, just because they're all in the same vein, and I'll be in the mood for all of them. I might as well not shift gears. And then in this Friday Reads, we will shift gears to end things out anyway, because those were 3. These are going to be frustrating and somber reading. But the next one is not. The next one is kind of fun. This is from, I believe, MIT Press. Yes, MIT Press. This is an illustrated thing. It's by Emmanuel Poetic. I probably massacred that. It's translated by Eric Butler, and it's called Atlas of Poetic Zoology. It's a slightly oversized, thin thing. And it leads readers into a world of wonders where turtles fly under the sea, lizards walk on water, insects impersonate flowers, birds don't fly, frogs come back from the dead, and virgin sharks give birth. And that's all it is. A lot of these things you'll be familiar with. The author goes through oddities of the animal world, sharks, elephants, chameleons. There's full color illustration on every facing page. And that's all that it is. It's not in-depth natural history. Instead, it's, what are flightless birds, what are, gigantic animals, very tiny animals, hummingbirds, bioluminescent animals, stuff like that. Little funny stories from the natural world. I love books like this, and this one has really nice illustrations. So, did I mention when it comes out? This comes out soon, I think. May 7th, like everything else in the world. And I mean, I'm not meaning to sound poo-pooing on this. I'm just saying, it's not going to break any ground. Any of you are familiar with the animal kingdom, you really love your animal stories like I do, you're going to know everything in here already. It's a neat way to capture it, that's all. And that is all for Friday Reads for books. But I also, just today, got some treats, some real treats, that will also be part of my Friday Reads, my long weekend reads. And they are 2 great science fiction periodicals, this Asimovs Analogue, both of which, by sheer coincidence, have similarly themed covers. Notice this time around, the cover in both cases is a 1-word titled story. Very nice. Gremlin and Bone Hunters. It's just a random chance, but I mentioned on this channel before, I absolutely gobble these things up. For a subscription to either one of these or both, for a subscription to these things, you are getting so much for your money. Just so much. Every single issue, these are square-bound periodicals, they're about monthly, and every single issue, literally every issue of both of these, has at least one short story that'll make your hair stand on end, it's so good. I admit there's ballast, of course, in any anthology, any science fiction anthology series, there's always going to be ballast, but there is something standout, memorably good in literally every issue. I hunt for them, and sometimes there are many good things in every issue, so I was very happy to find them. I still have not subscribed to either one of these recently. I let my subscriptions to both run out. I haven't renewed them, so I just go to the store and buy them. But anyway, that is Friday Reads. So we have Atlas of Poetic Zoology. Nice big picture book, perfectly shareable between adults and kids, about some of the more remarkable wonders of the natural world. No groundbreaking stuff, but really well presented. Then Bullets and Opium. The survivors of the Tiananmen Square massacre 30 years later. What they remember, what they were doing, how it affected their lives. Then Justice for Some. New legal and extra-legal study of what's going on in the Israel-Palestine conflict, the eternal Israel-Palestine conflict. Then The Buried by Peter Hessler. All about, they even kind of look the same, all about it's a 2-pronged thing. It's the 2 different conceptions of, that Egyptians sometimes put on the nature of time, one of which is eternal and the other of which is cyclical. and the book sort of weds those two. You've got these ancient ruins that are yielding records in their own way of upheavals just the same as the Arab Spring. I loved it, and I think you would too. If you're interested in the subject, I think you would love it. Then Damnation Island in a very nice paperback, all about a benighted era. God, you read about it and you think, I might not be a big fan of America, but we don't do this kind of crap anymore. That's in full light of day. Then, boy oh boy, Sonntag, a big, ambitious biography of Susan Sontag, coming out in September, but I'm not going to wait. No way. Then Dog is Love, a new study that says that no matter what cold water has been put on the idea recently, your dog does in fact love you. And there's science to prove it. And then lastly, The First Stone, a big, fat new novel by the author of We the Drowned. So any of you who read that book and were really impressed by it and wondered where the author was, well, okay, you're getting a new book in September. Only thing is, you should probably make a note of it because it's an Amazon book. So it might not be in your bookstore. For purposes of petty turf warfare, it might not be. You might have to either order it from them or get it directly from Amazon. One way or another, though, I mean, I'm often a big fan of Amazon Crossing titles. They always seem intriguing. But this one's a must-read. I mean, the follow-up to We the Drowned is a must-read for contemporary fiction readers, especially if you read that book and loved it. But anyway, that plus the science fiction magazines is my Friday reads. And as always, with Friday reads, I want to know what you're reading too. I mean, I gobble up these videos and I gobble up the titles to see who's reading what, whether or not there's any overlap. So if you make a BookTube channel, I'm going to see your Friday reads. But if you don't make a BookTube channel, then two things. One, make a BookTube channel. And two, sound off in the comments. Tell me what you're reading this weekend. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.